Hi, it's Gina DePrima, and you're listening to Divorce with Heart. We merge heart wisdom and legal expertise to guide you along your divorce and co-parenting journey. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Can you believe that it is already the end of June? Oh my gosh. I can't even believe, I don't even know where this year went. Today was the first Monday in a long time. My kids didn't have to get up. I didn't have to rush them to school. It's crazy. So anyway, here we are. It's episode 12, Divorce with Heart, and I have a very, very special guest here with me today. Her name is Stephanie Maloney, and we are going to be talking about something that I know is so important to so many of you out there, and that's the money. We're going to be talking about how to get the numbers right when you're going through a divorce. So hopefully you're setting yourself up for the best outcome after the divorce. And, so much just flows from money. That's where the emotions get caught up and tied and things get snagged and, divorces take forever. So there's a lot to talk about when it comes to money, the division of assets, the division of debt, and all that stuff when you're getting a divorce. So that's what we're going to focus on today. But before we get into that, I just want to, address a few things as I usually do. First, I want to say again, thank you so much for all of your support, for listening, for giving me feedback, for leaving ratings and reviews on iTunes. And if you haven't had a chance to do that, or maybe you're like me and you usually listen to this kind of stuff in the car, just, when you think of it, I would so appreciate it if you could do it. If you could just jump on iTunes or go to the Inflow Radio website and look for my page, Divorce with Heart, and leave me a heart or a review or a rating, something, anything like that, just to let me know you're there, that you're with me, that you're hearing me, that we're flowing together on here, because that's what this is really all about. I don't receive any money. I don't get paid to do this, nothing like that. And neither do my guests. So it really just means so much to know that you're out there, that you're listening, and that what I'm bringing to you is helping you to move forward through your divorce, or, maybe you're struggling and it's after your divorce. So if you could do that, that would just be so awesome. And another thing is I'm still looking for you. I posted it before. I'm looking for my rock stars of divorce, my rock stars of co-parenting. I want you to come on. I want you to be my guest. So if you've got a story to share, please let me know about it. You can message me at DPrima Law. That's on Facebook. Join the Facebook group page. That's the Divorce with Heart group page. And let's connect, okay? I mean, this is the community for all of us. And it's really about raising awareness and helping everybody out there who might be struggling with a bad divorce or who might be struggling in co-parenting to realize that maybe there's a different way to do it, and to talk about different tools and different solutions for those problems. So if you've got a story to share, please be my rock star guest. Come on the show with me. If you're too shy, you don't want to come on air, that's okay too. Let me know what's going on for you and we can work it out. It's not a problem. And last little bit of business I was thinking about for this show is I want to do a contest. I don't know what I'm going to call it. Maybe we'll call it like the Summer of Love contest or something. But basically, what I want to offer to you is an opportunity to have a one-on-one call with me. And that would be totally free. And the point of the call with me would really be for me to help you kind of sort through, gain some clarity on where you're at right now in your relationship, in your breakup, or where, maybe it's after the fact, and what you're struggling with, and to help you try and navigate a way out of it, a way to feel better. And the call might also include some energy techniques where we may go in and rebalance, for example, the energy in your home or your relationship with your spouse or your ex or your kids or anything. So, and the other thing too, I almost forgot to mention because, I've kept this sort of a secret side of me for so long, but, I'm an empath. And what that means is that really I can go into the mind and the heart of others that are involved in the situation. When I talk to my kids about this, because they do it too, I call it energy jumping. That's using your empathic skills for good. So that's another thing that we can do on this personal one-on-one call with me. So as I said, this is a contest. I'm only going to be picking 3 people each week for this free session. Okay. And all you have to do is call into the show and mention something you got out of the show. Mention a takeaway. It could be anything I said, something I said maybe that led you to think of something else, anything, just something that, inspired you, sparked you. Maybe it even made you angry. I don't know, but some takeaway. So call in, mention the episode, mention what you got out of it. And again, if you're shy, believe it or not, I'm a pretty shy person, and to call and have people hear me on the radio, I know I'm doing it now, but it wasn't always this way. So if you're like that and you're just not ready for that step, but you want to get in on this contest, that's really okay too. Again, just message it to me on Facebook at DPrima Law. You can do it on the Facebook group page. Just somehow let me know the episode number or title and what you got out of it. And I'm going to randomly select 3 special listeners each week for this one-on-one personal breakthrough call with me. And so that's really exciting. I don't know how long I'm going to keep this offer open. I think I'm going to call it like the Summer of Love Challenge, like I said. So we'll try to sustain it throughout the summer. And we'll see where we get. So get in on that. And of course, you can get started right away today. Give us a call, 1-760-456-7277. That is our live call-in number. And you can get in on the contest today. You can call in with a question. I'm going to bring Stephanie on in just one moment here, and she's going to be able to answer questions as well. So please give us a call. And now, let's get into the topic for today. Let me tell you just really briefly, who is Stephanie Maloney? So I met Stephanie a while back when I was doing the training with Catherine Woodward Thomas to be a certified conscious uncoupling coach. And Stephanie is, in fact, a certified financial planner and a certified divorce financial analyst. So when we're talking about needing somebody who knows and understands the numbers and knows and understands how the numbers interplay with the emotions when you're going through a breakup and a divorce and a separation, Stephanie knows what she's talking about. She's been there. She's been helping people through this in a variety of different capacities for a number of years. And she really, really understands that, yes, divorce is a lot like winding down a business, but it's also very different in that because of the emotions and because of what people's emotions sometimes tend to, keep them from doing. They kind of get in the way. They stall the process, so to speak, at times. So in addition, this is really, really cool, and I can't wait for Stephanie to tell us more about this, but she is the owner and founder of Peace Talks, which is a California-based mediation service. So let's bring her on, and she's going to help us take all that stress out of the numbers and help you move forward. And again, as we're here today talking, if something comes to mind, give us a call. We're here for you. Stephanie, you there?
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Hi. I can hear you. How are you?
Yay. I'm good. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Numbers, finances, money, that's one of the things that really can complicate things when going through a divorce, right? In fact, I was just looking up some things on Google over the weekend, and I saw that finances, in fact, are one of the leading causes as to why people divorce, which I'm sure that doesn't surprise you, right?
Right. Well, because the finance, when you're talking about money, a lot of stuff comes up. We put a lot of meaning towards money. Power is involved with money. It can be very complicated and a little bit tricky to work through.
Absolutely. So I just mentioned when I was kind of giving your background information that you're a certified divorce financial analyst. And I don't know if everybody is familiar with what that is. I know where I am over here in New York, it's still a relatively newish kind of concept. So maybe we could start there and you could let us know, what being a certified divorce financial analyst is all about, what kind of credentials does one need? What did you have to do? Let us know. Go ahead.
Well, it does. It has kind of evolved over time. I first took the certification in 1999, so I've actually been doing this a while. And I took a class over the summer after I had gone through my own divorce in 95 and was introduced to this course and just really felt like it was an opportunity for me to be able to use my financial planning skills. I'd been in the financial market since the mid-'80s, and this really gave me an opportunity to do something which I felt could be a lot more meaningful.
Mm-hmm. So what is it? Like, walk us through the difference, I guess, when we're talking about a certified financial planner, which is one aspect of what you do, and then the certified divorce financial analyst. What's the specialty in being the divorce financial analyst, or how is it different?
So you're really looking at how to help people through their divorce, help them gather their information, and best optimize their financial situation. While dividing up their property and allocating maintenance support. We have special software, and it really does help to develop options and look at different solutions as you're going through your divorce to see if you're going to be okay, not just today, but also in the future. There's forecasting that is involved, and just really breaking it down and finding possible options for the future.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever get involved with couples while maybe they're married and contemplating divorce, but they know that it's the finances really that's causing the fight? So maybe they're thinking, well, if we could just get the finances in order. It's just a thought that just came to me, after I've looked at that statistic and actually saw that people divorce in large part because of finance difficulties. Do you ever get involved at that stage before people get divorced?
Well, actually, that's a really good question. Because I always work with a therapist, a mental health professional, I've had a number of cases or opportunities to work with clients while they're in their marriage to be able to work through a financial issue and do a little planning or look at different options and mediate this really concern or problem that they have, and that's really helped people stay married and help them not get to the divorce phase. So, I just find in any marriage, money is a very difficult topic to talk about. I know I've been married 22 years, and I don't think we were able to talk about money until probably 2 years ago. So it's just a very very hard thing for most couples to do. So to be able to get a third party to help you with that can really help save marriages, I think. Yeah,
that's funny because I was going to ask you, because I understand you don't just deal, right? Or over these years since 1999, it's not like you've only dealt with couples, thinking about divorce or going through the process, but other people as well. So I was going to ask you, what is it that's particularly challenging when you're dealing with couples or people in this sort of stage of life, It's
the meaning that people put towards money, towards their relationship, towards their situation, and how it affects their personality and their person. What I've learned over time, I think, is just, do you stay a victim, or do you really find ways of kind of changing that meaning in your head? And
right.
Being able to get to an understanding of the finances, I think, can really be helpful in looking at different options.
Yes, right. So before somebody gets to that stage, right? So like before they're kind of knee deep in the process, what are some things maybe that they should be thinking about so that they can best prepare? I know there's different ways of doing it. So it's the process, I know, means a lot. Can you talk about that a bit?
So prior to a divorce, is that what you're asking? I think prior to a divorce, I think some of the things to prepare would be just to make sure that you do have all of the information. Really try to understand the family finances, assets, debts, income, and expenses, and making sure that you have a handle on the information, I think, is really important. You don't want to get into the process and then have to do a search. The more you can get up front, the better. And I think that brings us into that conversation about process, because we can talk all day about little things, financial things, to try to save money, but it really, in the bigger picture, isn't going to make any difference if you have a process that's going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. Meaning,
yes.
The litigation process. So really, before you start getting a divorce, thinking about how to do the process, I believe, is the most important decision. And being committed to, I'm willing to sit down at the table and figure this out without fighting, without having two, aggressive attorneys going at each other. Let's look at what options we have, what sources of funds that we have available, and what's the best way to allocate it for our family.
So in speaking of process, I believe, but I don't know if it's clear to our listeners, you're talking really about the differences, right, between litigation, mediation, or a collaborative approach to just going through the divorce, right?
Right, yeah. Exactly. So mediation, and that's why I just really believe in collaborative law and mediation, in that it's a process where it's a voluntary process and you're not going to trial. You really have committed to sitting down and working out different scenarios to try to find something that works for, your family. And I think finding the process where you can sit in a confidential room to be able to talk through different options and processes doesn't mean you have to agree. And that's the key. Like, you don't get to get out of that room until you come to an agreement, and no one could force you to agree to anything. So you have the same rights to get all the information, but you'll look at, negotiating and finding out what's going to work best for you. So
it's a bit of a different, right? You take a different approach, perspective, I guess, or you put a different lens on the issue. So instead of when you're set up kind of, as you were mentioning, in this like adversarial process with two aggressive attorneys on each side, where each of you is looking to, I guess maybe protect as much of their assets as they can and get as much as they can from the other spouse, where it's more of a one-sided, I'm going to win, you're going to lose. When you go through the mediation or the collaborative process, really it's more, right. It's just about recognizing the mutual, it's a mutual decision or I shouldn't say decision, but but the marriage dissolving is happening. It's happening to the both of you, and you both are then faced with the challenges of moving on afterwards. And how can you both be set up in a way where that's going to be fair to the both of you, right?
Right, or at least something you both can live with. Like, I've heard people say that, everything that happened in the marriage, I can get over. But what happened during the divorce process, I will never get over. And that really, I think, is a testament to, what kind of process you want to be in. Because you can, dissolving your marriage, we can figure it out. We can find a way. We can divide those assets. We can allocate income. But, how people treat each other, that's an important decision to make. Like, how do you want to leave the other person? How do you want to treat the person during the process? And, you can't control how the other person acts, but you certainly can control how you act.
Right. Oh, yeah. And that's what we're all about here with this show. As I say, if you're going to go through a divorce, you might as well divorce with heart, set yourself up for the best future outcomes that are possible. So, and I just want to back up for a minute on something you said, because I really want our listeners to really understand this. I really don't think it can be stated enough. And that's the whole idea of why choosing the process is important. And it's because you could get so caught up in the numbers. I mean, I have been involved in so many cases where we end up arguing over the littlest things in terms of value, right? And it's like, if you would have just picked a different avenue to begin with, it wouldn't have even been worth this argument to make. And I think when you and I were talking off air, I can see where this is going to come up a lot more now also, given the new changes to the tax code, because I'm already getting a lot of questions about that. And I guess we should probably talk about what those changes are first, and I'll let you address that since you're more of the expert, although I think as a nation, we're all trying to figure out how it's going to play out still. But nonetheless, because people are aware that there's changes, and these changes are going to really be upon us very, very quickly here, I'm getting a lot of questions about that. And that, again, means, well, maybe you shouldn't worry so much about the tax impact, because anything you'd save tax-wise, right, could easily be eaten up if you choose the wrong process. So if you could talk a little more about that, maybe start with what the changes in the tax code are, just generally speaking.
Well, I think the biggest thing that we notice is after the beginning of January, they're getting rid of the spousal support deduction. Mm-hmm. So looking at that a little more carefully, the real when that is most effective when you're doing a spousal support award is when there's a difference between the person paying it. If they're in a higher tax bracket than the person receiving it, then that differential can be a tool to use to help to help pay a little bit less money overall. That's receiving a little bit of a benefit, right? If the person paying it gets to deduct more than the person receiving and what they have to pay. So, but, in very high net worth cases, it probably doesn't mean that much, because the person receiving the spousal support probably gets into about the same tax bracket as the person who is paying the support. So, we can kind of cut that out, because that differential really isn't that big of a deal. Right? It sounds like it is, but when the other person has to pay, it probably isn't that big of a deal. And the up to that point, it really hurts, more of the common person that's paying. If there's a difference, maybe the non-working spouse receiving money, maybe by the time they pay it, they're in a lower tax bracket. So looking for other ways where you might be able to have tax reduction, I think that could be a benefit. Sometimes doing more of a spousal support buyout, that can be a nice benefit where maybe you don't, because you're not going to get that spousal support deduction in the future. Maybe you can find some number that could, just kind of eliminate spousal support or maintenance. I think those are all potential ideas and options to look at, or maybe find ways of, paying things other than having a payment, paying, different costs. But getting back to, I think, your other question is, spending a lot of money to fight about this issue, might not make up for that differential. And I think that's what we're talking about.
Definitely. And I don't think that can be stated enough, and just to stress, I mean, this is an area where bringing on a divorce financial planner, maybe you're already in the litigation process, but you could still agree to bring on a neutral divorce financial planner to help you look at the situation from a neutral perspective, right? Use the software that you have, that you mentioned, and do some cash flow analysis, right? And see what are some different options. Mm-hmm.
I have new clients all the time that come in from the depths of litigation. Clients that have spent well over, 100,000, 200,000. People that we just came in last week spent over 350,000 in litigation already. So being able to find, and it's not only the financial toll, it's the emotional toll that they've been through over the last year, and they still don't have solutions. So, our hope is to meet and go through options and talk and be able to get through this, by actually working on things, working on the numbers, working on getting solutions, finding that third option.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And then what are both spouses going to need after the fact, right? So that they can maintain a certain lifestyle or be able to provide for their needs and provide for their children. And how do we best maximize the cash between them instead of just giving it to the government, right? And that's something that a neutral can do. It can help you. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to get into what are some of the documents that somebody should be getting together, when they're about to go through the process, and looking at more of those details when we come back. And again, taking calls. So if you have a call and it's financially related or otherwise, let us know. Buzz us. We're here. Hey there, it's Gina. If you like what you hear, did you know that you can get even deeper and closer to your heart's wisdom and receive personal one-on-one guidance by working with me virtually? If you're sick of drowning in frustration and overwhelm and ready to flow through your divorce and co-parenting challenges, then go to my website and book a call with me. That's deprima.com, DEPRIMA law.com. Or you can find me on Facebook at DePrima Law. Talk to you soon. Some of you have questions about your partnership, marriage, or co-parenting situation. I'm here for you. Give me a call in today's live episode by dialing the U.S. number 1-760-456-7277. That's 1-760-456-7277. Talk to you soon. All right. Thank you for sticking with us. And if you are just coming in now, we've got Stephanie Maloney on the line with us. And we're talking all about the money here today. And we're just about to get into what kind of documents you should be gathering and getting in order for yourself before you get into the divorce process. So, Stephanie, are you still with us?
I am so excited to be here today. Thank you.
Oh, good. In New York, we have spouses complete a court-provided financial affidavit, or also known as a statement of net worth. And this is an extremely important affidavit because it really provides the framework in a lot of ways of what's going to happen, or at least where we need to begin in the negotiation process. And the affidavit here in New York is broken down into 3 parts. The first part is all about the monthly budget. So you really have to go through all of your monthly expenses, straight on down to if you have laundry expenses or landscaping expenses, miscellaneous things. And the second section is about your assets. And it's very detailed here in New York, where you need to list the inception of the asset, what the source of the asset was, who it's titled in. So it requests detailed information. And the third section is all about the liabilities. And that is to give us as attorneys in the court and each spouse an opportunity to see the financial picture of the parties or of the marriage. So I don't know that every state has that. I believe that I think most states do operate with something at least very similar to that. Do they have that out there in California, Stephanie?
Oh, absolutely. That's the most important piece of the divorce is we call it disclosure. If you're in a voluntary process like collaborative or mediation, you actually just exchange that information between the two of you, and that information is not filed with the court. So it's not public information. Here in California, things filed with the court becomes public information. So you're not required to have to file the actual numbers. That financial information stays private. It's exchanged between you and the attorneys, but unless you're going to trial, it doesn't have to be filed with the court. If you do go to trial, you're going to need to file it with the court. But what you do have to do is file an affidavit that you've exchanged it with your spouse, and that piece that promises that you've exchanged it, that is what gets filed with the court.
Wow, that's a huge distinction. So if anything gets filed with the court, it then becomes public knowledge, public record. People can access somebody's financial app. Wow, if I were in California, that would definitely be the reason for me not to pursue litigation. We don't have it like that here in New York. Right? It's sealed, but wow, that's something.
Sealed. It doesn't. It's really difficult to get all of that information sealed, and that's why people choose to not go to trial. That would be a good reason not to go to trial.
Absolutely. It makes sense. So, but I get this question a lot, and those forms can be very difficult to prepare, especially the budget section, I think, is where people struggle the most. So what kinds of documents should people be gathering to help them and assist in completing these forms?
So regarding assets and debts, trying to get statements, looking at your credit report, looking at your tax return. A tax return will say if you've gotten any dividends or interest, should list where you might have accounts. So I think both of those are really good places to start for both assets and debts. Mm-hmm. And looking at your income and expenses, sometimes, if you it depends on how you pay your bills or how you pay for expenses. A lot of times people may use their credit card for a lot of things. So being able to get a summary at the end of the year could be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Investment account statements comes to mind. And things relative to the kids, too. Sometimes people have bank statements that are in the children's names or 529 plans. So I think people are going to want to gather that as well. Health insurance documents.
That might have your name on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's just trying to get the paper on almost anything you can think of relative to your finances, right? And And that would
Right.
include health insurance documents, social security statements, credit card, debt statements. And then we're also talking about valuing property, right? So, for example, vehicles. I often will advise clients to go get me a Kelley Blue Book printout, for put in all the options of the vehicle. Give me the Kelley Blue Book on the vehicle for a arm's length third party sale in the condition that you think that your vehicle is. And that's something else that we need. So if you have assets where you can try and determine the value, it's looking to other places like the Kelley Blue Book, like eBay, maybe even depending on what kind of an asset it is, and printing things out that you can then use as a basis for your estimation of value, right?
Well, and I think that brings us to another kind of benefit of making sure that you decide your process first, because how you go through or how you plan to go through the divorce process can actually kind of dictate what kind of documentation you need, right? Because if you decide you're going through litigation and going to court here in California, you have to show evidence. But in the collaborative mediation and a voluntary process, it is upon agreement between the two parties. So if you're going through a collaborative or mediation, you get to decide, you get to agree on a value. And then if you don't agree, then you can go to get more information about how this might be valued. But sometimes people just agree on a value or just agree to split or continue to co-own the assets, and you don't necessarily have to be perfect in the valuation. So it does give you the opportunity to be able to really decide how you want to handle the division of property that's going to be best for your family.
Definitely. And I'm glad that you said that, because I don't mean to suggest at all that, Google printout or Kelley Blue Book or eBay or Craigslist things that's necessarily admissible in evidence. The point, though, that I'm making in getting these things is it gives you a place to start. So when you are then having that conversation, either through lawyers or directly with your spouse in the mediation context, you're able to say, look, this is what I have, this is what I think the value is, and this is why. And then they can then say, okay, well, I agree or I disagree, and here's what I think. But you've got to have something that's more objective, something that you can point to instead of just, well, I just, pulled this out of my head. Right?
Exactly.
So, or somewhere else. And then the home, oftentimes, you've got to value the marital home. So that means getting an appraisal, and you can save costs, of course, by agreeing on who's going to do the appraisal and then just agreeing to use that appraiser's numbers instead of both sides getting an appraisal done, or maybe doing a market value report with a realtor. But the idea is you've got to be able to quantify in some way what you have. So those are the kind of documents that you need to start getting together, right? Anything else you think missing here?
The property values out here in California are, a little bit crazy right now. So, it's hard to value. It's hard to know. Getting just a comparable sometimes right now can be a little bit misleading, because your realtor is trying to sell your property, and getting a bank appraisal can be a little bit subject to, because it seems like they kind of come in low with the idea that they're giving you money, right? So I really do, if we can't come to agreement, I do really like to hire an outside appraisal service to be able to help get that appraisal, one that's not really biased.
Yes, right. Oh, I don't think we mentioned also pensions and retirement plans. That is something else that is very important to gather, and not just the statements, right? But the organizing documents, the summary plan descriptions, and everything that tells you what all the other, what would you call them, like benefits? I know that there's special terminology for it. What is it, Stephanie?
Well, the plan documents, but I think what we run into a lot here in California, because we're a community property state, is that in contributions to a retirement plan during the marriage in California could be considered community property. So being able to differentiate if you had made contributions prior to marriage or contributions post-marriage, and being able to allocate that properly, I think the best way to be able to do that in the most accurate way would be to keep your statements. So if you're planning to get divorced, make sure you have all your statements for your retirement plan.
Definitely. And, New York, we are equitable distribution state, but it's the same thing. Oftentimes people would have already been earning previous to the marriage and then continued to earn or contribute during the marriage. And it's the same idea. We always ask for statements at the time of the marriage and statements that are more present or when the action commenced. So then we can begin to sort of parse through what's what and look at the gains and losses and that kind of a thing. Plus, different plans have different options, especially on the pension plans. And that's the reason why you really got to get the plan documents, because you need to review them. And some plans require quadros, qualified domestic relation orders, in order to be able to divide these assets, and some don't. So that's something very important that people would need to gather as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think another consideration that is starting to come up, and again, I think it's starting to come up more now because of this change in the tax code, is addressing college funds and the 529 plans, right? And what their use is going to be. Because typically, and tell me if I'm wrong, but typically when you've got a 529 plan, one spouse is still the custodian of the plan. And so there's potentially a risk there that they could withdraw the money and use it on something that they would want to use it on, right? So, and now we know also, because of the change in the tax code, there's been an expansion on what these 529 plans can be used for, right?
Right.
Stephanie?
So one of the things we do in our mediation agreements is that we agree as to how, who can take out, and that they need an agreement between the two of them to take money out of the plan. So we actually try to put that in the court order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's a big one that in years past was often overlooked. And I'm starting to see it more now. And like I said, I don't know if that's because of the change, because now it has been expanded. I think you can use these funds for some private education even before college, and that wasn't the case before. So more and more people are funneling their income into these plans, right? So it's something that you definitely don't want to forget through the process. And estate planning, too, is something else that I think needs to be considered in terms of finances and the divorce. And looking at your will, even as you're going through the process or right before, is your spouse still designated as a beneficiary? Because if God forbid you pass away and your divorce isn't finalized yet and you haven't changed your will, then your will is going to control what happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, here in California, we have temporary restraining orders. So which covers wills and beneficiaries and things like that. So without an agreement, people are restrained from making those kind of changes until they come to their agreement or final order. So we have to be a little bit careful with people making changes to their health insurance or life insurance or will or all of those kinds of things, probate,
right.
And revocable trust, that kind of thing. People need to be careful of making these kinds of changes prior to their divorce becoming final, because then they would be against the restraining orders.
Mm-hmm. Unless they agree. So it's something that they need to address. It's something you can bring up and say, look, this is what I'd like to do, and we have an agreement on
writing?
This?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Writing. And especially around like health insurance, they should make sure that the other person, before they're taken off of the health insurance, they should make sure that they actually have a policy in writing, because the person that took them off could be held liable for taking them off. So it's really critical that you don't do that without knowing that there's another policy in place.
Yeah, right. Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Another thing, I've kind of put this under ideas of special consideration that comes up in my practice, and I try the best I can to explain it, although I'm not a financial expert. But, not all assets are created equal, right? Like $1 of equity in a home is not equivalent to $1 of a 401k, for example, right? And sometimes I'll be reviewing an agreement for people. Perhaps they went through mediation with somebody else, and I'll review it, and I'll see these sort of trade-offs, and I'll see that the asset is treated equally when in fact it's not an equal asset. So I wonder if you could educate us a little bit on that.
So I totally hear your question. Sometimes I have different ideas on that, because I don't think it's as clear cut, because even though a retirement plan, you have to pay taxes when you're taking it out, it grows tax deferred. So if a person isn't taking the money out right away, then that deferred tax can also be a benefit versus cash in the bank. So it kind of depends on what their plan for these assets are. Yes, a house is different from a 401k, but houses also have embedded tax. If you're going to have to, sell it sometime in the future, when you're buying it out, the court usually doesn't consider selling costs or taxes. So it's kind of in a way, kind of a similar situation. So if you're kind of looking at trying to compare apples to apples, you really do have to get into the details about what taxes might be due on the property, on maybe investments, and what the cost was when they purchased the investment, and also retirement, and how it might be treated, and when the money might be taken out, and what their tax brackets might be. So it can be a lot more complicated than just comparing them all the same.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And that's all the more reason why it's a great idea to work with somebody as a neutral, so that they, again, can help look at all these little details and all these little nuances and get to know what your personal future plan is. So then they can then answer the question whether or not this proposed, set off or agreement or whatever the case may be, whether or not it's actually best for you, right? Or maybe there's another way to do it.
Correct. And the future implications of your agreement. You can come to your agreement can look 50-50 today, or equal or fair, as we call that the other F word. But maybe in the future, it's not so much, depending on your availability for income and cash flow, and keeping the house, for instance, may not be a great idea because it costs you money. It doesn't make you money. But right now in California, it's not about can you afford to keep your house. It's what are the other options, because it's difficult sometimes to find other options. So all of those things need to. I just really think you have to run the numbers. I always say run the numbers. You just can't make guesses without really looking at the projections and how these things play out.
I could not agree with you more. Run the numbers, and it's best if you can run the numbers with a neutral who's willing to work with the both of you. And if you can't get that, then at least have somebody on your side, part of your team, just to go through it with that more of that financial mindset. I mean, that really is the way to best prepare. And I know we're getting to be close to the end of the hour here, and we haven't talked yet about peace talks. So please tell us about peace talks.
Well, I know you said at the beginning I'm actually not the founder. The founder was Diana Mercer. She started this as a co-mediation process back in 2000 with an attorney mediator and a therapist mediator. And then I started working with her maybe about 5 years later, where I came in as a neutral financial to help also with the process. And then in 2013, I actually bought the process, or bought the practice from her. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Sorry about that. Thank you for the correction.
Yeah, it's been a really good, I'm really proud of the work we do here. We actually work with a team approach where we have an attorney mediator, therapist mediator, and financial mediator, and we all work together in a very concise process so that we can really get people from, the beginning of their divorce to the end in a pretty short period of time. And we have a full-time paralegal who does all the paperwork and reviewed by the attorney, and we have an attorney service that comes and picks all the paperwork up and delivers it all, hand delivers it to court, so clients never have to go to court. Like I said, I'm really proud of the work that we do. We really give a lot of support to people going through the process at a very reasonable cost.
And what's the area you serve? Is it specific to just California, specific to a county? Tell me about that.
I mean, we're in Los Angeles County. We have an office in Playa del Rey and also in the Valley, kind of Sherman Oaks, Encino area. But we've traveled and we've worked with people in Orange County and kind of all in this area.
Okay. So it's not a service that you can provide virtually to people outside of California. Then, right?
Possibly. I'm always open to ideas and trying to help people through the process. We've had clients that we have worked over Skype and people who have kind of been in different areas. So we can, I think we can help people.
Oh, okay. Great. Good to know. Wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. And you have a website and contact information so people can find you?
We do. Our website is peace, PEACE-talks.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie, so much. And you are a member of our Divorce with Heart Facebook group. So I just want to mention that in case anybody had a comment or a question, they could reach out to you there as well, right? That would be okay.
I do. I watch it and I try to comment from here and there.
I know you do, and I so appreciate that. I know everybody does. So
I appreciate you setting this up. It's great.
Thank you. And we didn't take any calls today, but if anybody is hearing this on the replay, please reach out to us again through the Facebook group. That would be fine. Connect with us there. And let us know. Let us know what you were thinking. If you've got a financial question, Stephanie's there to help as well. And again, just a reminder what I said on the top of the hour. Please leave a rating or review on iTunes or Inflow Radio. And, more news. We're on Spotify now, which is pretty cool. I've been waiting for that. So if you like Spotify, we're there too. And get in on this new contest. I think it's going to be really cool. I can't wait to talk to some of you. Again, I'm only picking 3 winners each week. So please have a great week, and we'll see you Monday. Thank you so much for joining me today. Come back next week and be sure to visit my website at dpremalaw.com to book a call. Or let's connect on Facebook at dpremalaw, where you can join my group for more support. Please remember that the information shared is for general and entertainment purposes only, and that by calling in or messaging me, we are not creating an attorney-client relationship, and my advice is not intended to be legal advice. For specific legal advice, please contact a lawyer in your jurisdiction.
This show is brought to you by inflowradio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.